short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
We are facing an act of aggression, and obviously we have every right to defend ourselves.
We've been hit. We've been hit.
History unfolding in the Middle East. The U.S. and Israel carrying out an unprecedented military operation, crippling Tehran's leadership by taking out Iran's supreme leader, along with dozens of other top officials.
The devastating blow to Iran's Islamic regime, a result of one of the largest military operations in the history of modern warfare, with 900 U.S. strikes in just 12 hours, using 2 aircraft carriers, 3 destroyers, and B-2 stealth bombers, and striking at least 500 Iranian targets.
We've already seen dozens of U.S. military bases targeted with retaliatory strikes as Iran vows revenge.
President Trump urging Iran not to return fire or face, quote, force that has never been seen before.
The sentiment for Iranian Americans across the globe, elation. Celebrations erupting after the strikes came down in what could be the best hope for relief from the Islamic regime's reign in decades. We begin this morning with Jennifer Griffin to walk us through this history-making mission. And good morning, Jennifer. It's really quite remarkable when you look at the total package.
Griff, very remarkable, but also a complicated picture emerging this morning. The Iranian leadership that did survive, and there are a few leaders that did survive, the president, as well as Ali Larijani, who's very powerful in Iran, have threatened the U.S. and threatened to attack 27 U.S. bases across the Middle East. And we've been seeing a lot of those missiles flying into neighboring countries. A mob also tried to storm the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, and Pakistani security forces used batons to push back an angry crowd threatening the U.S. consulate in Karachi, Pakistan. Both Iraq and Pakistan, of course, have large Shia Muslim populations. And British Defense Secretary John Healey said 2 missiles had been fired towards Cyprus, where the British Army has service members stationed. In Tehran, following the announcement of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, there were spontaneous outbursts of celebration on the one hand, but also some crowds chanting today in downtown Tehran, "Death to America." Not clear if these were spontaneous or organized protests, but you can assume that the remnants of the regime and the IRGC will want to present a united front, suggesting that the regime will survive. The man to watch is Ali Larijani, the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. He just gave an interview in which he described the killing of Ali Khamenei as extremely painful, threatening revenge, quote, "The United States and the Zionists have burned the heart of the Iranian people, and we will burn their hearts." Meantime, Iran managed to fire more than 300 missiles at the UAE, where the U.S. has a military base at Al Dhafra, about the same number as it fired toward Israel. Actually, about 100 ballistic missiles were fired toward Israel yesterday, according to the IDF. So this was actually more missiles fired at UAE. Iran has expanded its response, even firing missiles at Oman, which tried to negotiate that last-minute nuclear deal and avoid war. Qatar received about 65 Iranian missiles since yesterday, and Bahrain approximately 35. And explosions have been heard in eastern Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, today. Israel, meantime, has increased its airstrikes and says it will now target Iran's nuclear facilities, and just moments ago hit the headquarters of the IRGC and barracks in Tehran. That is where the massacre of last month's Iranian protesters was organized and carried out. Smoke has been seen rising from near Iran's state broadcasting facility in Tehran. And in terms of the U.S. operation yesterday, The U.S. military, we learned, carried out 900 strikes in 12 hours. 10 to 15 senior leaders of the Iranian government and military were killed in that Israeli strike on Ali Khamenei's compound. Multiple sources tell me that the start of the operation, the joint operation, had to be moved up based on intelligence and this target of opportunity, a meeting at Khamenei's compound. Quote, there was a deliberate decision to accelerate the timeline. That is why the U.S. and Israel took the unusual decision to strike during the daytime to achieve the element of surprise and to target this meeting. Normally, the U.S. military would not launch an operation like this during the day. The meeting accelerated the timeline, I'm told. This was a massive, wildly bold daytime attack, a senior U.S. defense official told me. It caught the senior leadership off guard and on a Saturday morning during Ramadan and on Shabbat in the daytime. We hit the senior leaders right out of the gate, I was told. But some survived, including, as I mentioned, Ali Larijani, the man to watch, and Iran's president, who issued a statement just moments ago. Griff?
Yeah, and Jennifer, you mentioned what we're watching, what Larijani will do now. And, you know, I think we've focused so much on the IRGC, but would Larijani possibly try and go after or try to activate the Basij? People haven't talked much about the Basij, and it's important to understand that is a strong militia that could be sympathetic to the IRGC within Iran.
Absolutely. The Basij are like the internal police, this state police that are really very vicious and were responsible for a lot of the killing of those 32,000 protesters who were killed in December and January in Iran. The Basij are still a factor. Remember, we've talked about this in the past, but in the early days of the Iraq War, a lot of those security forces just took off their uniforms and floated away and then reorganized and came back and began carrying out terror attacks. Now, the difference this time is the U.S. will not be occupying Iran. They don't have ground forces that are going in, so there won't be any targets inside Iran. But those Basij and the paranoia that's been created over decades of theocracy and state control and authoritarianism in Iran is going to make it may be one of the reasons you're not seeing people come out quite in the large numbers that you might expect after such strikes on their behalf. But I think people are scared, and they have a right to be scared that they were slaughtered in the last 2 months. So what you're also likely to see, Griff, is the IRGC launch through proxies, through sleeper cells around the world, targets of opportunity. They tend to fight asymmetrically with terror attacks, and that is what I would expect to see, assassinations, terror attacks, but it won't happen immediately. It'll be when we let down our guard, and I think the strategy right now, from what I am observing, is that Iran is firing missiles at all of the states surrounding in the region, all of the states that host U.S. military bases, trying to create so much chaos that there's maybe pressure at the UN or elsewhere calling for a stop to the war. And if they think they can just survive these initial strikes and then regroup, that is their strategy at this point. But I'm not sure it's going to work, because it's really mobilized all those strikes on UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia has just mobilized those nations to prepare to engage Iran at this time.
Jennifer, there's been a lot of people commenting at the level of intel that the U.S. and especially Israel had prior to this attack, that it's really been impressive. So they've taken out this leadership. You talk about the leaders that are left behind. Based on the intel that they have, I mean, do they think that this B team, or I don't know, maybe this is the C team that's left behind, do they have the ability, the authority, the capacity to do what the A team could do? I'm just curious if that was taken into account. Like, why weren't they also taken out? And then also the special security forces that you and Griff were talking about.
Well, I think, first of all, Ali Larijani would be part of the A-team. So some of the A-team did survive. And that is what's dangerous in these kind of strikes. We've seen with Hezbollah and elsewhere that there are usually follow-on strikes, and usually the person who moves up in the rankings, they then have the bullseye on their back. Obviously, the U.S. and Israel have excellent, excellent intelligence. This could not have been carried out without human intelligence on the ground. They've been mapping these sites that they targeted for months, if not years. But in terms of the human